Well, hello out there, whoever happens to come upon this video later. Um, I am spending this evening futzing around with um, drafts of rules and such, and thinking about a little bit of structures of what appeals to me about a role-playing game. You know, where the good starting point is, and what will hopefully appeal to others. I actually haven't thought along these lines in a few years, uh, because the D20 system to me seemed more or less it served a purpose as being a good. Oh, I see there some people are here, have been here. I'm not quite sure. Uh, Hello, Sovereign Soul. Hello, ZXL Master. Uh, if you're still here, I don't know. I can't ever tell, um, because there is this little viewer count up in the corner of the screen that is never accurate. It sometimes tells me nobody's here, and then somebody comments, and that means that they must be there. They're not commenting. But I think GTSY got to go soon. I don't know. Well, anyhow, I've been thinking about role playing games and the design of role playing games. Haven't been thinking about that in a while because I've just been designing pieces specifically to adapt uh, certain properties or certain ideas and concepts to the D20 system, because the D20 system was a nice toy to play with. Wizards of the Coast had um, put it out there for anyone to play with that wanted to, and around 2012, 2013, I pretty much converted completely from being a uh, professional full-time writer and editor and game designer into that being basically a sideline. So I was content just doing itty bitty pieces and adapting comics and other properties to the game. Didn't have to worry about character creation because that was part of the D20 system. That was the game I was designing for. But now that Wizards has decided to crap in the pool, um, pee all over the license that gave everybody permission to write content that then everyone else could have had permission to use under the structure. And since they are revoking slash what's the word they're using? They're getting rid of permission to use their games. So I'm not in a mood to, or I have no interest in fighting for someone else's property, or continuing to be one of the few people who are still interested in old games like D&D 3.5, um, the D20 Star Wars system, the in my opinion, the best iteration of the D20 system, which was D20 Modern. One of the few people I was still doing stuff for that. And in my own little arrogant perception of things, may have prompted a couple of PDF sales of the D20 Modern core rules by people who picked up one of the comic book anthologies that had D20 system rules in it, who all happened to be a gamer, and said, wow, this looks like an interesting game. Let's see what these rules are that this guy is talking about. Well, like I said, Wizards decided to shit in the pool, pee on the on the our tickets in, and do whatever else they could to just destroy any pleasure that anybody else might derive from playing with their toys. I won't be playing with their toys anymore. Um, because I already came around to the realization that I was never really part of the gamer community, quote unquote. Actually, people told me that very loudly back circa 2017, 2018, that I was not part of their uh, community. Fine by me. But so I have no, so there's no community that I am betraying or violating or for. I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. Oh, the Excel master said me, "You are not alone. I came from tomorrow to be here." Okay, time traveler, excellent. Or he's back east, and I'm not quite sure which. Um, but he's got a new short up. I recommend go checking it out because he does nice little promos for other channels. They're definitely worth seeing. Anyhow, I am looking over old things, and I am considering where is where is the starting point for a role playing game? What is the if you're looking at a role playing game and trying to decide what is the best, where is its heart, where is its center, what do you look at first in deciding which game mechanics are the ones that should be the first ones that one focuses on. And as I'm looking over stuff I've done and the games I like, I keep coming back around to character creation. Character creation is character is where it starts for me. How you interact with the world with that character, um, whether it's through force, because most role playing games, you just you're there to fighting is part of it. You're going off to fight the aliens, going down in the hole to fight the goblins that live down there, whatever. So the combat, some sort of combat system and task resolution system is important, but character creation, I think, is where it's at. That's where the game starts, in my opinion. And so as I'm looking at the bits and pieces I have sitting around and thinking about, do I turn this into a game? Because what has been happening over the last several years is that I have gradually been assembling a D20 system variant. I mean, there's been enough uh, alternate rules I come up with that uh, combat system has been, well, the combat system I've really touched, but all sorts of task resolutions and spell casting systems and even character generation methods that were D20. They're alternate versions that I've come up with, and basically are new games for all intents and purposes. Oh, oh, you're on the other side of the planet too. I didn't realize that. Or have you just come back to the northern hemisphere? ZXL Master just said that he was in New Zealand or Australia, the land of hobbits, New Zealand. Um, well, anyhow, as I was thinking about this, I was coming around to character generation is really where it's at. And let me move a window over here so I can see the side chat and muck around with other web windows, because a lot of note taking that I do these days when I'm working on games and such, or game ideas, I type them into blogger posts, because that way I can access it pretty much anywhere I am. I mean, they're drafts of posts, they're not actual posts, but whether I'm just somewhere with my laptop or out in the living room, I don't have to have multiple copies of Word documents scattered across computers and jump drives or USB drives, whatever they're called these days. Just go to the web, click on the draft post, and then take notes in there. So I'm opening that up over here. so I can look at it, at some notes I took about a carriage generation system. I think I put them out there in the public as I was jotting them down, but I want to look at them again because I have been thinking about making it so there's maybe three different, well, at least two different kinds of games that I'm thinking about. That, you know, the one game will have the one game system in the, yeah, now of course as I'm sitting here talking, thoughts are not coming out. They're not going from here down to here and out to you guys in any kind of coherent fashion. ZXL Master, he's only a few hours into my future now. So I take it you're on a plane flying somewhere, flying north. Um, that let's see here. Did I put? Trying to remember whether I already shared it with you guys here on YouTube. I don't know why the stress on the words came like that. Oh no, I did not. Just oh no, I did. Okay. Yeah, I didn't even have the initial note here. Determine campaign power level / tone. Sidekicks are heroes. That's because I was thinking quite a bit about only a few hours into your future now. On bed. In bed, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Um, and I should probably be happy about that. I don't know. Well, a couple of years ago now, I think it was, there was there was an uproar about a Netflix film um, called Cuties that, again, I never saw it, but some people were saying it was child porn, all sorts of things. And actually, by saying those words now, I probably, given the algorithm gremlins are out there, I probably just, you know, destroyed my little live stream here. But they were, people were just all in a tizzy about it. And a lot of the things that I've done over the years with game design is poking fun at whatever was present in pop culture at the time or people were being hysterical about. My cat is happy and I am happy. He is here too, says XL Master. And actually, if you look in the background, you see one of my cats. He's laying at that cat toy I put together the other night. They don't really play with it. He just sort of lays next to it. Occasionally, we'll put a paw in there and bat around a little bit. But for about 15 minutes while I was sitting here answering emails and such, he was on the back of the chair and would occasionally sort of move around and pop his head over and just generally, oh, look, I think he will get to be part of the live stream tonight. He'll finally be a YouTube star. As soon as I clicked on the thing to start up the camera, he jumped down and moved back around and then ultimately ended up where you see him back there in the background because he's obnoxious and he doesn't want to be a YouTube star. Dumb cat. He does not want my channel to get 10,000 subscribers because of the cute kitty. No, he just wants to ruin me. Everybody is against me, including my cat. So, yeah, I don't know what to do with myself at this point. It's terrible, terrible, I tell you. Although I could always lose myself in the fantasy of these role-playing games, which takes me back around to what I'm actually talking about. So there was these rules. They started out being sarcastic commentary on hysterical people in regards to cuties and children dancing. It started there, and then as I was futzing with it, I went, you know what? These actually would be nice little kind of preamble rules to player characters. You could take, you could look at your basic D&D character or D20 modern character, and instead of where am I? I am on the West Coast. I am up in Washington State. I'm just south of Seattle, actually, um, down in the Renton, Tukwila, Burien area down in there. Oh man, that explains things. But that I think that coming online at 11:45 at night is a reasonable thing to do. Uh, that and as I said earlier, I kind of left the writing and editing field as a full-time occupation back circa 20. That was probably more around 2013, and I had to get a real job, and that real job um, kind of skews my day. It has some odd hours sometimes, and so, but yeah, Sovereign Soul. That explains why it is 11:45 because I get home about 10:30, 11 o'clock most nights. Although I have been considering, should I just instead of coming on at sort of random days, should I do Saturday afternoons just like once a week and do that? And would people who like to watch me ramble or talk to me, would they be around if I came on Saturday afternoons? I don't know. I should try it. I mean, I probably will try it. But yes, that is why I'm so late. And you're in the central time zone, right, Sovereign? Came back from a vision quest. Seriously? That's pretty cool, actually. That's far more interesting than anything I'm talking about, which is just, or yeah, well, I was intending to talk about, and I just kind of keep sidetracking myself. Oh, Virginia. Okay, all right. Oh, so yeah, it's early morning where you are. Um, that's nice. I need to dig more into your content. Do you talk about that sort of thing on any of your videos? Because that is interesting. Um, but anyhow, I was thinking that kind of a character generation system that was a zero. I mentioned this other night that there was the Greyhawk Adventures from many years ago that had zero level AD&D characters, and so this was an idea where you had zero. Essentially, you're making kid versions of what is going to grow up to be the epic heroes of the main game. So the stats are a little lower than when they're generated, and as you're progressing through levels, you get some feats and you get some bonus character points. And what little playtesting that was done, actually, when I penciled it out first, it seemed to work in theory. Hundal took it to her game group. They played with it a bit, and it seemed also to build characters up to the point where they were starting D20 system characters. So I will. So I'm thinking that this new game that I'm trying to come up with will have two different modes of basic character generation. And Sovereign Soul, I will start talking more about it. Yeah, the Vision Quest thing. Um, Oh, it's been a year since the last time you did it. Okay. Yeah, I will actually be 100% honest here and say that I am not brave enough to do that sort of thing. Um, I know people can, you can gain all sorts of insight from it, but I don't know that I would appreciate the insight that I might get. So while I will write all kinds of fiction about those sorts of things, and I will make up fantasy material about it, I don't know that I would have the courage to do it. Yeah, see, that's the kind of thing that would probably creep me out to the point where I wouldn't quite know what to do if I was really confronted with the sort of thing that I've spent the better part of my life writing uh, imaginary stuff about. Um, I'm yeah, I'm gonna have to keep an eye out. It would be interesting to see if you start talking about that. Uh, oh, Dave King, sorry I'm late. Fell asleep watching a Cholito video. That happens. That happens to the best of us. If you don't have lots of coffee or something else to drink, yeah, or amphetamines. That's very easy to fall asleep watching his videos. A parasitic psychic entity. I have spent so much of my time over the years making up stories and rules for those sorts of things that just seeing you say that sovereign soul um, gets me thinking about adventure hooks and random tables. Not that again, I don't take that sort of stuff seriously. That well, that's why I don't want to do Vision Quest myself because I don't know quite what I would do with myself if I figured out all the fantasy that I've generated over the years is either pales by in comparison. Well, it probably does pale in comparison to what's real because most imaginary things do when it comes right down to it. Oh my, yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah, if you ever get back to that topic, I'm gonna have to be. I will definitely. Uh, I keep trying to catch live streams, and I hardly ever do because, yeah, my bizarre schedule and sleeping at weird times and uh, doing things at work that keep me away from stuff like this. It's one of those hurry up and wait jobs that I have. Okay, Sovereign Soul says the entities in that realm tried to scare me, and they were perplexed because I wasn't. They were perplexed by me for some reason. I think because I had a that doesn't impress me attitude. See, and that's what I'm afraid that uh, I don't know that I could put on that facade. I'm very good at putting on the facade with normal people, so to speak, but supernatural entities, I don't know that I'd be able to be cool. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more about this. But the so that game system that I'm futzing around with, and I'm kind of putting this out there. Hopefully, someone that plays these games will say whether this is something that sounds appealing or not. Um, Two basic starting points for the game. Oh, look at that. Um, One, you start as sort of the preview of the characters that are coming, or you can use those rules to sort of do Nancy Drew kind of adventures, Hardy Boys kind of stuff, or your sidekicks to the heroes that are out there. So that is as the characters gain in strength. Actually, 5 levels is basically the sidekick class that you then graduate to the hero class. Because this game system only had that I have in mind actually only had one class. There's not a bunch of character classes. Everything is modular. Your character, all of your character abilities, you gain them as you progress, and you can mix and match them as you please. Uh, because I have been looking at what were feats and talents in the D20 system. I always treated feats as a standalone kind of thing. You take a feat. You're really good at stealth. Um, and then there's a talent tree related to stealth, and that increases your stealth. That's unlocked by the stealth feat. And you either get really good at stealth, or even sometimes there's stuff that you can do that is magic almost, or superpower esque. And let's see, says Sovereign Soul, the parasite appeared like a basic video game type entity. Like from that kid's game where they dig and mine. Oh, haven't played it. Minecraft, I think. That's that where everything is kind of boxy, and the graphics are um, very like early '90s in the way they look. I think I've never played it. Um, some friends of mine were doing live streams of it when well, I hope they don't mind. I call them friends. Live streams where they were doing all sorts of bizarre things in the Minecraft world. Um, as in using the way you build things to just come up with the strangest sort of self-contained feedback loops that would generate the resources and such. Um, I will admit, though, Minecraft looks like it required entirely too much strategy and thought to be successful. I like I like the pretty games where I just have a character and I run around and look at the sights as much as doing the adventures and having the battles and such. Uh, in the computer games, that's what I go for. The actually the only game that I've stuck with at all in the computer arena is there are two of them. Guild Wars, which I played for about 5 years, I think, maybe less than that, and then Guild Wars 2, which has just had its 10th anniversary, and I've been around playing that ever since, and I still play that. Not as much as I used to. Now I'm goofing off on YouTube when I used to be playing Guild Wars. Okay, Sovereign Soul, continuing with the psychic entity here. He says, I took my fist. It was a huge neon fist, and when I pummeled it, it broke into little fragments, and the neon went out. I know that sounds weird. You had to be there. Yeah, actually, way back in college, the closest thing I think I've ever had to sort of that sort of experience. I forget if he was the music critic or what he did. He was a freelancer that occasionally provided articles, but we were in the woods. Forget why we were in the woods. Um, oh yeah, there's a photographer acquaintance of ours was taking pictures. We were in the woods, and he had shrooms. We took some shrooms, and I didn't think they had any kind of effect, and I said as much. Except I saw green, very bright green bugs crawling around on the plants and the leaves, and apparently those bugs weren't really there. But other than that, I didn't see anything that would seem significant or impressive or anything. But I've read a lot about the sort of um, taking. Again, I don't know how Sovereign Soul did this, but things like peyote and peyote. Englishing is hard. Uh, sort of a mind altering things you can smoke and drink, and DMT. Going to show my ignorance there, as I can't remember what that means. Let me see. Ah, okay. I'm laughing at one of the links that came up when I put it in just to see if I remembered what it was. And yeah, I was right. But one of the ones that come up is where to buy DMT, and then a very amusingly named web store. Acid Paradise. Interesting. Yeah, another thing that worries me about the sort of about doing that sort of thing. Part of me, from what I've read, uh, seems to imply that those kinds of things, you get from them what you get out what you put in, basically. And by all accounts, I am a very negative person with a rather cynical outlook upon the world. As I think I've mentioned before on this channel, staff at one of my old employers put a sign on my office that read "Festering Ball of Hate," and so yeah. Again, even if I were to meet real spirits, I would be concerned about what sort of impact it might have, just because of my overall negativity. Yeah, exactly, Sovereign. It's the chemical that's responsible um, for dreams, and then when you take it out and uh, what's what I'm looking for? Well, process it, I guess. When you manufacture it, you can then enhance what, or I'm way out of my wheelhouse here, but the spirit molecule. Oh, that's an interesting name for it. I like that. I'm probably going to steal this stuff, Sovereign, and turn it into uh, role playing game rules, right? um, but yeah, Minecraft, haven't played it. Requires too much thought. I just like running around, whacking, beating on things, and um, playing, looking at pretty graphics. And Guild Wars is nicknamed Fashion Wars because of all the various options you have to change your character's appearance. Oh no! Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry, Sovereign. Um, I, I I like the side chat. I like spinning off into random areas. Um, and I don't know whether it ever happened, whether it was just something we were talking about, but I do know in the Rolf game there was something kind of poking fun at psychedelics. There were some mechanics there. And I think in our drunkards, we did a little rule where you play characters that, well, are drunkards, little rule booklet. Again, a lot of this is just done for humor. But I don't know whether it ever happened or whether it was just a conversation that we were having. But maybe it was in the Love Witch rules. Love Witch is an anthology collecting a bunch of Marv Wolfman written fantasy comics, and then with role playing game rules inspired by them. Um, Gosh, now I've got to look at this. Somewhere there was something done with either vision quests or spirit travel or some such thing. I'll have to, and well, regardless, that will be folded into, or maybe it was in the Witch Kind book. Anyhow, they're going to be that sort of stuff will be folded into this new game that I'm toying around with in my head. Um, I just don't know whether what I'm trying to decide as I'm looking at all these various options is it something that people would take advantage of? Would people be interested in here are pre-hero rules for your characters. You get to shape your characters. Here's the hero's formative year. Here are his childhood friends that he's going to be adventuring with when he becomes a a grown up or a hero or whatever. Is that something that people would even be interested in having, or is that the sort of thing that gets its own little game, its own supplement? Um, because even if it would be an option, you could either here you can start at this level, this character generation system that will grow your character into this other kind of character, or you can just start here with this generation system and then just play from there. Regardless of how, whether it's A or B as far as the starting point, both of these would have kind of a very simple baseline. Here is how here make your character. Here are his attributes, his statistics, what they end up being called: strength, dexterity, constitution, all the usual things. Because I'm sorry, Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, all you guys, you cannot copyright the stats that are in role-playing games, dozens and dozens of role-playing games. I fully intend to use the D20 system stats. Is it six? I think there's six attributes. I fully intend to use those. I might, I'm going to swap the order because that way it's not D20 system. It isn't. Um, and that's just not me repeating things for emphasis. That is just statement of fact. So they can stomp all over the license. As I said, they can shit in the pool, but all I'll have to do is swap the order of some of those attributes, and I've overcome one of the problems of decoupling everything from the open gaming license. And yeah, actually, Sovereign Soul, that is actually why he says here that it's a mirror of reality where the characters start young and then grow into what they're going to be. That kind of like making a character in D&D. Or are you saying that it would make a cool game to do the Vision Quest game? Actually, frankly, you know what? Stealing, well, it's not real stealing, but the Spirit Molecule actually is a cool title. Yes, I would hope you can hit the sack, because what is it, 4 a.m. out there? So yes, good night. Good night, Sovereign. Thank you for popping in. I really appreciate it. And you give me something to chew on. So thanks again for coming by. But character generation rules, very simple. The initial ones, you just sort of generate your stats and maybe pick a couple of feats, maybe a couple of talents, and then you have your character. Or you can have that could be it, and then you can start playing. Or, and this is something that we did it initially to mock this, when this whole obsession with the sexuality of your player character, the gender of your player character. Oh my God, it's racist to have elves in role-playing games, or orcs are the analogy of black people, or all this complete and utter garbage, in my opinion. So we came up with mechanics where you could make, give your characters races. So you can make your character white, you can make your character Arabic, you can make your character Asian. somebody said that he was offended because we didn't have Native Americans. He was joking, but that kind of went over my head because these rules were actually Hundal's invention. I thought they were hilarious, and I put them on the blog. So I wasn't quite in the right frame of mind, but we added Native Americans for that reason. So that would be if you're going to. Oh yeah, sovereign. It yes. If you don't just try to boil it down to its most simple, it's something that you will just never get past the first step if you don't try to put yourself in a box as you're working these things through. Yeah. But yes, good night. See you next time. And feel free to comment anytime you want, even in the of course on the replay. Dave King, would that be both options, same game or easy and hard mode? I am talking of old style paper-based role-playing games. It would be that's what I'm kind of wondering. Would it be too confusing to the consumer to say, hey, here's our game. You can either, there's two modes in the same game. You can either play these kid characters, and you can just, your characters are kids and they're growing up into being adventurers, or you could just play, Scooby-Doo or whatever, or Hardy Boys or whichever with the rules, and then never have them grow into adventurers. Or you can just skip the whole initial step and just generate your characters as adults. And then where the increasing complexity comes in, you can layer races onto this. And then on top of that, you can layer cultures. And these races and cultures then give you mechanical bonuses. Again, it started as a gag, and the more I thought about it, the more it says, okay, this could be an interesting addition to an actual serious game. Even if the place where I started playing with it and seeing that it actually kind of worked out as I penciled it out, I'm looking for a link. I'll put a link in the side chat. If people want to click on it, they can go look at. Let's see if this is the one that has the map. Yeah, here we go. No, that's not it. Well, that is it, but it's not the way I want to look at it. It's over on the NUELOW Games blog, and it started out, like I said, this whole notion of races in role-playing games started out as a joke, and then mechanically, I thought it was kind of interesting. All right, well, no game stats in the actual. We had something called the World of Starvania that we've done some little bit of work on, and there are multiple cultures and human races in Starvania. Of course, now I can't get them to come up because. All right, World of Starvania Part 2, character creation. And I was looking at the World of Starvania stuff, and that's when I was. So I'm going to put the link up there. There's the blog post to the World of Starvania character generation, and it sort of has the first you generate the ability scores, which is pretty much straight up D&D. And then step 2, there's a random table. You don't have access to this feature. What the hell does that mean? Okay, I just had the weirdest message flash across the top of the screen. Huh. Oh, and if this is not making sense to anybody but me, just feel free to say so in the side chat, and I will attempt to rein myself in or be less boring or try to make more sense. If you are thinking of it as like a starter character for use for someone just trying game and doesn't know. Okay, yeah, thinking of it as a, well, yeah, that actually would be something else that I hadn't really given a lot of thought to. Is oh, my connect. That's what it meant. Okay, my connection is unstable, so I might actually be losing everybody. My connection is unstable. Please wait while we reconnect. So maybe maybe I am lost in the ether. Uh, Maybe I should just stop talking because maybe I'm no longer even broadcasting. If anyone can hear the sound of my voice, please let me know. Although it seems like it's still recording. I've got, oh, no, it just kind of gave me a weird kind of backwards count there. Are you sure it said connection? Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure it said connection. But okay, you guys can still hear me and see me, and you're still awake. That's good. But yeah, Dave, I hadn't really given much thought to an actual starter game. Um, Other than again the most basic character generation would be where beginning players could be. You just it's I think that was kind of an appeal of the very basic D&D red box game. You rolled your 6 stats. You um, gave your character hit points. You rolled the hit points, and then he had a sword that he stabbed things with, and that was basically it. As the character stabbed things, he got better at stabbing things, and he got more hit points. And you know that that was simple. That was straightforward, and there really wasn't a whole lot of need for anything else. That would be where this would be at its most simplest. You just make a character and you're ready to go, and then you can add things like your character's race in the system. Because I'm toying with it in my head, I'm seeing the option to randomly generate your character's race, your character's sex, your character's gender, your character's sexual preference, all these things that people have been obsessing about in recent years, at least in my little corner of the universe. um, would be built in as options into the character generation system, and then you can do it or not. You can either pick an option for your character, or you can, I am going to model reality and I'm going to roll these kind of things randomly because you know life is a crapshoot. You're born into something, you're born with something, then and you do with that something as you do. You live your life, you improve certain skills, you neglect others. You can improve, you can work against your strengths to elevate yourself in the world, or you can play into your strengths and excel in those areas that you already like. You have a player, then you can choose options that play off of that strength score. Or your character is very strong, but you want him to be the bookish type. Even if the intellect score is a little low, intelligence score is a little low, you then take mechanical options that will boost your intelligence score. So those are, again, that gets into a more involved character generation system, and just as you play the game and the characters evolve. And that's one of the reasons I loved the um, D20 game system, is because it does that very brilliantly. In well, brilliantly. It's a bit of an overstatement, but it does it very well. It's a very plug and play kind of system. You can choose to direct, even even with the D&D character classes or the D20 modern character classes that have certain strengths and weaknesses, you can either go all in those particular strength areas using feats and talents, or you can what's the word? Smooth over weaknesses or enhance weaknesses of your character's abilities by using feats and talents. And in this system that I'm mucking around with, like I think I mentioned at the beginning, until David gave me that very Sovereign Soul brought up the very interesting Vision Quest thing and got me completely sidetracked. In this sort of reshaped, because that's all it's going to have to be reshaped, because I don't want to junk a whole ton of very good ideas that all sort of tie into making a separate set of rules and even a world. That's actually another question that is rattling around in my head, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But here's actually a suggestion for whoever finds this later on and whoever's watching right now in the side chat. Because I am wanting just to, not to paint a big target on my head and say, hey, you jackasses at Wizards, please sue me because I'm copying your game material. I can't really call feats, which are little game mechanics that enhance your character's abilities, that you add these to your character as he gains levels. And I can't call, and then tied in with the feats are the talents, which are, the way I'm applying them, are a series of sort of progressively, like I said in the beginning, you get progressively better along a certain area. Like, for example, let's say you're playing it's a superhero character who has the ability to turn invisible. So he would first have a feat that would be a superpower, and that superpower is not, to blend into the background. So he has maybe a bonus of 6 to his hide roll, or his hide and shadow roll, or whatever. But that feat then is the prerequisite for the invisibility talent tree. And the first talent in the invisibility tree would be an increase in his hide of 10. He gets a plus 10 to his hide. And the next talent would be just pure straight up invisibility. He turns invisible, and if he attacks someone, he becomes visible. They notice, now they see him. And the third one would be he's invisible even when he attacks, so long as he's conscious. But he's invisible. If he gets hit or injured, he can make a willpower roll or whatever, some sort of roll, and he stays invisible. And then the final one, because all these should be between 3 and 5 in this chain, 3 and 5. The final chain, he can make other things turn invisible. So that's basically the Invisible Woman from Fantastic Four that I just described there. Her abilities with invisibility. And then, of course, she also has some other powers that you could mimic, but that would be a different talent tree that you would take options from. So and I think talent trees you can get away with. I don't, because I'm not 100% sure whether they use that very extensively. I think it might have been D20 Modern, but I don't I have to like pull the book off the shelf over there, and right now my butt is nicely firmly planted in this chair. And but yeah, so if anyone has suggestions as to what's a nice different term for feats versus and instead of calling them feats, calling them something else, and talents, I think the term, and yeah, I opened a can because I'm getting parched from all this talking, and tonight's episode is not brought to you by Dr. Pepper because if I said that, they would be sued. But Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar is keeping me awake. So, and not giving me diabetes, I hope. Artistic differences, says Dave. Yes, artistic. And oh, hey, Cody, welcome, welcome. Um, love the idea of the character classes that grow into each other, or just the plug and play, or actually just every idea, because every idea I have is lovable, right? Yeah, yeah. um Anyhow, I was actually going to see, because so character creation, as I was kind of thinking of ways to rejigger this, would be you have character generation, so required steps would be the character stats, and then I was thinking race and culture, but those would be something that's setting specific, so I don't know if those could really be specific, if they could be requirements of the sort of core of the rule set. And then there would be optional, generate the character's sex and gender and handedness, um, because all the cool characters are left-handed. Um, because yeah, because there's a reason I reach for the glass with my left hand every single time. Oh yeah, that actually looks very, very disgusting, doesn't it? Um, that is because there was cranberry juice mixed with a little bit of almond milk in this glass, which probably sounds gross to people, period. But another thing that's baffled me recently, just to completely change the topic, I'll get back to game design in a second. I saw some headline that people were outraged and disgusted by Lindsay Lohan doing a Pepsi ad where she drank Pilk, which was Pepsi and milk in the same glass. I don't understand the outrage. I've done that since I was a little kid. Um, Milk and Pepsi or milk and Coke go together fabulously. Um, and Cody says I'm touching on a sore subject. I do that quite a bit. If you've been to the NUELOW Games blog or gone to the NUELOW Games storefront at Drive Through RPG, or my Facebook page, you would see there's all kinds of things that might be a sore subject. But what specifically did I touch on that was a sore subject? Uh, Hopefully Cody will tell us. But I was calling, to get back to the new rule set. I was considering, um, the feats would be in a category called advantages. Specifically, as you're creating characters, you would have racial and cultural advantages. Probably more cultural than racial, because racial would probably be tied to stats if there's anything like that in the game. And then the advantages would come from um, culture. You know, how you were raised, what your society emphasized as important, what your family emphasized as important. Not a problem, but I only have my left hand. Well, okay. Uh, well, okay. That means you are just automatically you're the cream of the crop. That's not a sore subject. Diagnostic mode starting. Good night. All right, ZXL Master. Thank you for popping in. It's always appreciated. Um, but so the feats analogy, or the feats in D20, would be called advantages. Charming your girlfriend. Charming your, yeah, okay. Charming your, charming my friend. Charming, oh yes, charming my friend. Yes, I am very charming. Um, so yes, feats are advantages, racial or cultural. And then the talent trees would just be called talent trees, or maybe special talents. I don't know. Um, but some terminology needs to be switched around or reinvented or something. And then you would have, uh, I'm thinking a starting profession, which again would provide you more uh, stat modifiers initially, and maybe access to an additional bonus feat or two, or bonus advantage to reflect what you've done in the time before the game actually started. And same thing with skills. You would have to have skills. Every game needs skills. That is actually not entirely true. Every game does not need skills. As I said before, back in the old days, the D&D game was you had stats, you had a sword, and you beat things with it, and that was about the extent of it. And then they started introducing skills, weapon skills, uh, other skills. No, not bad spelling, just a typo. And I had to decide whether I'm seeing the side chat here. When I didn't know whether Cody was saying I was charming or whether he was charming his girlfriend, he typoed an F for a G and he said, say, charming, my friend. Yeah. Um, nope, not bad spelling, just a typo, uh, which gets made all the time. But so, yeah, I'm just. So I'm just, I guess right now what I am really trying to decide would it that should there be something in a basic character generation system? Should there be something that allows for races, or is that too much poking at people's sensitivities these days? And I'm also thinking, at least in the world of Starvania setting, which is what I'm leaning toward being a. Actually, I'm leaning toward having a couple different. That's something else too. Again, how now just spinning out randomly in every which direction here. Um, should there be a setting implied in the rules, or should there be a setting that just is there in the rule book initially? That's another thing. Part of me is going back to when I say that a game doesn't necessarily need to have skills. Uh, Several years ago, um, I co-designed a game with a friend called Rolf. It was mostly her invention, but especially the revised edition. But that game, that game was basically, it was all about combat. There was even a more stripped down combat version called You versus Me. I referenced that the other night, where it's a game where you can turn your friends into enemies, because you make a character for your opponent that is your view of the opponent, and the opponent makes the similar character. You swap them, and then you just beat each other. You beat the characters, beat each other up, and that's really just all the game is. It's a combat game. The Rolf rules were turned into a real role-playing game when we expanded it for use with Robert E. Howard's boxing characters. Still mostly, goofy combat, but and the other supplements made it into a real role-playing game. But Rolf shows that you don't necessarily need all the fancy schmancy character advancement options for a game to be fun. But, and I guess this comes back around to my initial sort of thought: what's more important, the combat system or the character generation system, or character advancement system? What do people who are looking at a game, what do they find to be the most valuable, the most important aspect that gives them the most enjoyment and pleasure out of playing the game? For me, it's the character and what I can make the character do and how I can improve the character as I'm playing. But that ties into the combat system and how actions, and because when you say combat, when I say combat, I think I'm just as much thinking about action resolution. And Cody says some games you worked on, like Rolf. Yeah, Rolf was just a straight up combat game. And although when I say do games need settings, actually Rolf from the very beginning had a setting. I mean, the name of the game, Rolf, is one of the pre-generated characters in the back. But it also is, I think, this could be me inventing history that doesn't exist, but it could also be maybe it was an early maybe I don't know, early use of the no, it's not that, because it's backwards. Never mind. Rolf was always no, actually, I remember now why it's called Rolf. It's called Rolf because it was just kind of vomited forth onto the page. It was just Rolfed up there. It was, yeah. the very, very basic core mechanics of Rolf were literally created in the space of minutes. And it was intentionally designed initially as flawed. Nobody noticed the flaws, or that they noticed and they didn't comment on them, and they just kind of figured out their workarounds. Because probably people playing that game were people like us who enjoyed tinkering with their games. We left out ranged combat rules. And there were no range combat rules in that game for years. And either nobody noticed or people just worked around it. We had ranged weapons, but there was really no explanation on how to use them. But yeah, nobody noticed. And eventually we put ranged combat rules in one of the supplements. But that was one of the things that amused us the most, is that either people that played Rolf were creative enough that they, or observant enough that they could analyze how to work around the fact that we didn't specifically mention how you did the ranged combat, or they just came up with their own ranged combat rules and didn't think about it twice. Most games do have a setting, says Cody. Yes, that is true. But do the rules need an implied setting? To be, I mean, for people to be able to get the most use out of a set of role-playing game rules, does there need to be an implied setting? I suppose for things like magic, it would be important to have an implied setting of some sort, because the source of magic comes from the setting. I mean, the setting determines. I'm talking in circles here, but I mean, let's go back to the vision quest that David was talking about. Sovereign Soul was talking about earlier. Does magic, if magic is provided by spirits, that would be different than if magic is like in Star Wars, which is the Force. It's just an energy that's around and in everything. Or if you have to do rituals devoted to the gods to get magic going, that would be different. I mean, mechanically, I suppose it would all be the same. It could all be the same. Marvel actually used their comic book universe. Well, yeah. In every iteration of the Marvel role-playing game, it's been based in the Marvel universe. Same thing with the DC comic game, but there was a Judge Dredd game that used the D20 system rule set, as a for example, and there was a and there's been, let's see, 4 different Marvel comics role-playing games, and at least 3 different DC ones. And all three of the DC I could think of had very distinctly different rule sets. So a setting can definitely be translated into any kind of rules, but I guess what I'm trying to think through, especially with this notion that should the game have things like, you determine what you have your character. You got humans, you got elves, you got dwarves, you got Atlanteans, Martians, whatever. And then within those, you could have, or you do have, races. Or do you just have humans, elves, dwarves, Martians? And race is something that is then added in as a complicate or a additional mechanical tweak, enhancement, complication that is determined by the setting. For example, I was mentioning the world of Starvania, and I put up the link to it. Eyes itching. And in the world of Starvania, there are the Moronicans, who get a +2 charisma and -1 dexterity. The Salvians, who get a +2 strength and -1 wisdom. The Skittish, who get a +2 intelligence, -1 charisma. The Skittish are a bookish culture who like to remind people how brilliant they are. The Woovians, +2 wisdom, -1 strength. I have no idea. I don't remember why we gave them that. Then there's the Amazons. They had some adjustments based on whether they're men or women, as I recall. And then there's Elf. And we didn't do anything with elves because at this point, this was originally written, it was supposed to be part of the OGL system. And dwarfs and witch kind being a race that exists in NUELOW Games products. And then we had rules for mixed ancestry, which gave you different attributes, modifiers to your attributes. So that was very setting specific, because we in the write-up for the World of Starvania, we had a number of different cultures and races that had been part of the same empire at one point, and that had then broken apart, and now they were at war, sometimes at peace others, but mostly at war. And if anyone wants to see the World of Starvania, because it was, again, supposed to be funny, there is a blog post with a map of the World of Starvania that has and by the way, this is taken from a Three Stooges film that is in the public domain. Nations in the World of Starvania are things like Great Mitten, Moronica, Woohoo, Hotfoot, Slaphapia, Iran, he ran, she ran, they ran, also ran. There is Jerkola, Jugoslavia, or Jugosaliva, and so on and so forth. Just very silly place. Whether that's going to be the actual final game that I ended up putting together, I don't know. Knowing me, it probably will be, and it'll sell dozens of copies, dozens, I tell you. But that's why I'm thinking about, does this rule set exist independently of the world? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. And this is, again, going to be another super boring video that people won't get more than 2 minutes in before they quit. Yeah. Actually, I need to like make seagulls or something from that country. The map resembles the map from Game of Thrones. Really? Oh, that's interesting. Again, another bit of confession here. I never watched Game of Thrones. I've seen the opening credits, sort of, and I think the theme is a great piece of music, but I've never watched the show. I've never really read the books. I think, if I recall correctly, I started reading the first one, or I was warned off. Maybe someone was reading the first one and they warned me off because they were reading along and they liked this character, and then it just gets killed, and they got so angry. She got so angry she threw the book across the room. And so yeah, I have never actually ever looked at anything Game of Thrones, despite me making jokes every now and then about it. Yes, because you absorb things that are just all around you in popular culture, and Game of Thrones is just one of those things. Never saw an episode of Mad Men. Never saw an episode of Breaking Bad. I can keep going down the list of things that people love and adore and talk about, and I can say, yep, never saw it. Sorry. So, yeah, a lot of things that were made decades before I was born I've seen and can talk about, but modern stuff, not so much. So interesting that this looks like the map of Game of Thrones, because it's kind of sort of based on Europe. On Hotfoot, for example, if you look at it, that's Italy. And Great Mitten, Great Britain, of course. And it was the film it was in was called I Will Never Heil Again, I think. It was basically it was a Three Stooges film in which they made fun of Nazis. and they did so quite effectively. It's quite funny. Um, and there's a sequel to it as well. It's been years since I've seen either, but saw the map in, and I think the nation is actually Starvania in the films as well, uh, or the continent is Starvania. I forget. It's a continent, I think, but Moronica is the nation that all the Nazis are from in the film. I don't know they actually ever call them Nazis, but Hitler is evident. Himmler is evident. I mean, the basically the figures that were Nazi leaders were all very clearly evident uh, in that film. But yeah, there's also the Can't See and Yom Kippers or Yom Kippers, Bulgaria. Yeah, it basically just silly things on the map. Um, so yeah, whether that's going to end up being what gets used or not, time will tell. But knowing me, it probably will be. And as I said, it'll sell dozens of copies. But it would be quite a bit of work to reshape stuff so it's removed um, from the OGL, because there are generic things in the OGL, and this is a conversation that I've seen people have that I don't know. They could be right, it could be wrong. But it comes back to the rules can't be copyrighted. That's absolutely true. Rules cannot be copyrighted. The act of rolling a 20-sided die and having that result be compared to a particular chart, that operation can't be copyrighted. But the particular chart, I believe, can be copyrighted because it's an expression of a particular idea. Same thing. You cannot copyright the idea of a character being able to hide in shadows, and then you roll a 20-sided die to see whether the character successfully hides in shadows or not. Similarly, you can't copyright a game mechanic that enhances that character's ability to hide in shadows. But you can, I don't recall right now, but you can copyright the paragraph that says, for let's say a feat, a character with this feat gains a +2 bonus to his ability to hide in shadows. Um, Characters with this feat can re-roll their hide skill if the first roll fails or they are detected. Characters with this feat can take an action and then re-roll to not be detected, as opposed to the usual hide in shadows rule. Again, I'm making this up as I go, but if that paragraph existed in text, if that paragraph was in what they call the standard reference document, which I'm pretty sure states that it's copyright Wizards of the Coast. In fact, I believe that's in the gaming license, the open gaming license, that the standard reference document is copyright Wizards of the Coast. That specific terminology, those words in that arranged in that fashion, those are copyright protected. And if you're lifting a lot of that stuff into your allegedly new game system, you're plagiarizing and you're violating copyright basically. Um, the open game license let us do that, just like it let anything I've published with the open gaming license in the back. Anybody watching this until today could have taken that and used it in their products, as long as they gave credit That's what the license said, and that's why I produced it. Um, but yeah, that's all ending now. Um, apparently. So that's why I've got to think of making a new game system. And I got to think of doing it in ways I can use the thousands and thousands of words that are on the blog, are in the NUELOW Games releases. Um, yes, Dave, that's exactly it. The standard reference docs are copyrighted like any created doc. That's exactly true. But yes, you rewrite the paragraph, like my example of the hide and shadows thing. You rewrite it, ta-da! You are in the clear. Which, oh wow, look at all that cat fur flying around. Um, which is why I was mentioning the feats and talents I need different names for that thing. Um, because those actually are the foundation of this game system, uh, and they're used somewhat differently. Actually, the game system that I've been kind of piecing together over the last few years, feats and talents operate somewhat differently than they do um, in most D20 system games, in the sense that they unlock more things. They're just not a flat kind of mechanical thing that they. For example, and this will have to be reinvented, but um, instead of having wizard classes or spellcasting classes, you would gain the power to cast spells through talent trees. Um, Same thing with superpowers. Superpowers in the system that I've been sort of futzing with. Superpowers would you would start with a feat that is your power, the invisibility example from earlier, and then your power gets developed and stronger through the superpower talent trees. Like in Superman's invulnerability, for example, you have the feat, you have damage reduction. Anytime you get hit, you take two less hit points. I forget the exact mechanic, but it's along those lines. And then the talents increase that up to the point where you are Superman and you are laughing as bullets bounce off your chest, and you can fly into the heart of the sun and all this other stuff. Although flying would be would originate with this different feat and the talent tree, or maybe not. Maybe the way the system is written in most of the supplements is that once you have one superpower feat, that pretty much unlocks all of the all unlocks character's ability to pick any superpower talent from any, as long as they qualify for the talent on the talent tree, they can pick whatever they want. Which was my way of explaining why, if you read comic books long enough, some superhero would develop this random power that he didn't have last issue, but he suddenly has this issue, uh, because he had the invisibility superpower, but now he took the flight, the first flight talent off of the flight talent tree, so he can be invisible and fly. But he couldn't fly last week for some reason, but now he can. And in game mechanics, he took the talent from the flight talent tree. Talents were equals abilities. That might work. Yep, that's that. Let me see if I. But yeah, that's one of the things I was monkeying around with, I think. But I closed the window because I'm brilliant. I'm a genius. So I can't see what I actually had. That. Where did it go? Where did it go? Yeah, leaning forward, looking down at the bottom of the monitor, that is going to help a lot to look to. That's how you find minimize windows. You kind of look down at the below the edge of the screen. Yeah. Uh, um, yeah. Talents equals abilities. I'm going to write that down because that is such an obvious thing that I am now looking at my own notes here and I had not even written that down. So, Dave, consider yourself that you've been robbed. Um, because I'm going to make a note of that so I remember to consider that. Because I was calling them, yeah, the feats were in the superpower rules, the feats were the powers, and then the talents were the enhancements. So abilities actually would actually work in the overall structure and the different way that I was thinking about applying the way talents worked. And that would actually also kind of remain consistent across several uses. Okay. You guys have been helpful. Let me think out loud here. As uninteresting as it is ultimately. But yeah, as I'm thinking about it and talking about it, it seems it does things like mechanical fidgets for race and culture. That's resolved. That is setting, obviously, very setting specific, and is not something for the basic rule set. But actually, this well, actually, yeah, that's something else. Superman could not initially fly, so Superman used the uh, he had the invulnerability uh, superpower, and then he took talents from the invulnerability talent tree and the flying tree, and eventually the vision talent tree or whatever as he gained levels. Am I using the TSR Marvel Superpowers game? No, haven't actually even ever looked at that. I know it exists, but I no, I don't know. I literally have not purchased a role playing game uh, since the year 2000. Maybe a little more recent than that. But the last, I will confess, that the last decade, last 15 years, I have completely lost touch with what people are doing. So I'm coming up with a game or trying to write a game that has absolutely nothing to do with the current tastes of the gaming public. I have no idea whether anybody's going to like this other than something that I find appealing and interesting. Abilities, earned abilities, acquired abilities. Yeah, maybe something like abilities, earned abilities, acquired abilities, and that's what that day. That's pretty much yeah. That's what would happen as you gain in levels, so you would acquire these as you go along. Um, Talents as abilities, yeah. Let me get this up and let me type a quick note. Because abilities, you just call those attributes, and there's no confusion in that either. They use feats as a bonus. That's in the Marvel Superpowers game. Okay. But yeah, both feats and talents are things that you earn as you gain levels. But actually, just one. straight question to both of you guys. Um, does Oh yeah, yeah. There will be skills. Of course, there will be skills. And the skills would be your standard. Uh, you have a point pool. You put points into the skills, and that reflects whether you are good at this particular skill or not. And what I'm still going to call feats until maybe feats are advantages. Maybe feats are advantages, and talents are abilities. But feats would enhance skills in some cases, as well as I said, unlock the talent trees or the ability trees. The ability, um, well, ability trees, ability flows. I don't know, but oh yeah. I cannot conceive of having a game where there are no skills. I mean, Rolf aside, uh, if the game is, well, no, not Rolf aside, because Rolf, the focus on that in that game was combat. I I I just can't. I can't see myself playing in a campaign where a role playing where your characters don't have skills that they apply to things, um, and so I can't see myself come up with a rule set that I'm hoping will generate adventures and campaigns that don't include skills. But just so I can gauge whether it's a very large sample pool of two people, but does the notion of playing sort of pre-hero characters, does that sound appealing in a role-playing game where you kind of start with a weaker character? I mean, you always start with a weaker character, but I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it, maybe it's a dumb idea to have a sidekick or kid class that you start out and you train the character up to be a full-fledged character. Why not just make the full-fledged character? These are really two different games. Now as I'm thinking about it and talking out loud, that you could start with one of those one of the little characters and make it into a bigger character, but you wouldn't really want to start the game there. um, so yes, to use Cody's example, Dave says in the side, Code example, if I do a feat, say land a punch, my attack or defense skill improves. Oh, is that how the Marvel role playing game, the superpowers game works? Um, so you use a feat and you do a punch, and you choose whether you get you increase your attack or your defense. Okay. Hmm. Okay. Well, I think I've decided that there is no point to having a level 0 kind of mechanic, or a sidekick character class that you can then evolve into the main hero class. Because why not just start there if you're gonna be doing that? Maybe so at maybe so etching more elaborate than a punch. Yeah. Um, yeah. Now I'm just sitting here thinking. So once again, thrilling video watching. Um, but I'm also beginning to. I'll be perfectly blunt. I'm beginning to run out of steam a little bit. So even my normal pathetic focus is becoming even more unfocused. Something stupid, Otto. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, so hey, talking out loud is always helpful, and talking out loud already got me past a sort of a nice point where I would have wasted a lot of time monkeying with an idea that appeals to me. I don't know. Maybe it still would be a good optional thing to have in there. I guess I just like prequels. Something stupid, auto correct. Actually, there's another thing that should be stolen. That should be a character name. Um, maybe something more elaborate. Oh, okay. Maybe something more elaborate than a punch. Yeah, okay. I see what now I get what you're saying. Cody says, known you since high school and you smarter than me. Uh, Jury's probably out on that one. Um, I can talk a good game. No, actually, not even that. But um, actually, I'm still coming back to the idea that when you're sitting down and deciding what you want to play, you determine the power level of the game and the sort of general framework and setting of the game. Are you the heroes or are you the sidekicks? Are you are you the Scooby Gang, or are you uh, Steven Seagal? Have I been shot? No, I've been stabbed. I've had many broken bones, but no, I have not been shot. So but I don't know that being shot has anything to do with whether one is smart or not. I think being shot is more a reflection of being in the wrong time, in wrong place at the wrong time. Um, well, literally. I guess if it's an accidental shooting of yourself, I suppose that would be a little different. But no, I have not been shot. Uh, Something I try to avoid if I can help it. It's an experience I do not need. But yeah, I know that I seem to recall that you've had it, and I don't know if that has anything to do with being smart or not. Um, but and actually, I'm not so much stabbed as slashed. Now that if we're going to be very specific about this, um, and again, don't want to do that again either. And that's why I play role playing games. My character gets beat up, not me. My character gets stabbed, not me, and does the same to other imaginary constructs. Uh, but actually, something else. If you're coming up with a system, when we did Rolf, and this was well before it was something everybody was patting themselves on the back for and making a big deal out of. Rolf mechanically um, required you to determine whether your character was straight or gay. That was there was a mechanical thing in there that your character's sexuality mattered as you because there was a combat maneuver, I think they were called combat maneuver, that called strike pose, and because you were going to seduce the other character. This is a very silly game. But if you were striking a pose and the character didn't have the right sexuality, the striking of the pose made absolutely no good, or made no good, did no good. And so that's another thing with this should that be an optional part of a rule set? Because frankly, I have never played in a game where it mattered or even cared whether what my character's sexuality was. So what? Didn't matter. Um, and yeah, Vogue is what we called actually the D20 system analogy of that, I think, or something along those lines. Let's see, Dave King. Would the game difficulty change depending on character choices? If we're talking about the choice of whether you're going to be playing this kind of kid characters or the full-fledged Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of heroes, yeah. I mean, the challenges that the characters would face would definitely should be different. Um, I mean, Schwarzenegger should be fighting the alien with the adaptive armor that hides in the forests and shoots people with lasers, while the kid characters would be facing off against the old man in the rubber mask, uh, trying to scare the poor widow out of her home so he can get the land cheap. Uh, so yeah, the certainly the adventures would be different if that's what you're asking. But the mechanics, the character generation mechanics, the task resolution, all of that would be the exact same thing. Um, just the nature of the stories being told would be different. So, and that's something else I'm thinking. Would anyone, you know, design a game or play a game? Like, although this is just the basic D&D. I've run this when I run Mistar. The characters start, that little first level character is running around, um, and then they get more powerful. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just I think I'm just enamored by the mechanic of dialing back the base character generation system and then playing through characters, you know, the mechanical exercise of building a character up to the first level character. I think probably that actually is what I'm more enamored with than anything else, and that perhaps the cuties rule set is only good as a uh, only good as a lark, or it's good alongside if you're having a superhero game. Players can make sidekicks to other characters, but would players want to play a weaker character? That's intentionally weaker character, because that's what these would be. I, I don't know. That's something that's put a lot more thought into that. Whether that's even something that is worth pursuing. That should probably be set aside until the till I've figured out the terminology and switch things around to the point where the open game license no longer applies to anything. Oh yeah, no, there's definitely a setting in a world. Just, you look at all of the NUELOW Games stuff, and there's a setting there, even though it's never really spelled out. Notice Atlantis runs through most things. Black Cat shows up in a lot of things. I mean, all the stuff kind of ties together. I can't help but world build. It's just it's what I do, even when I sit down and I try not to. Things start in my mind coming together and playing into each other, and everything that starts getting tied into each other in an implied or stated setting. Um, but yeah, I think now I've just talking to you guys in the ether. But why a game system? Uh, because I'm too lazy to write a novel, uh, and I like game designing. Uh, and I'm too I guess too old and broken down to start my own comic book publishing company, and I couldn't pay an artist even if I wanted to. So that's why a game system. Um, but if you're saying design a world with, put together a world without a game system as part of it, I don't know if anyone would be that interested in such a world. I mean, well, actually, I can point to how was that, Stardust, I guess, for something where people aren't that interested in settings. Uh, the Stardust anthology we did, in my opinion, is some of the best stuff I've done. Period. And it performed very, very badly. Uh, so maybe people didn't know there was a neat little setting in the middle of the book, and they were just put off by the weird comics. I don't know. Um, Love Witch did better, and it has a setting in the middle of it. But I think that does well because, well, boobs. I don't care what people cry about. Boobs sell books. Period. End of story. Um, Cody, haha, I read your book from TSR. Talking about the short stories, Odyssey of Gilthanas. Um, Stan and Doug Niles wrote part of that too. Because that's the only, I mean, the only fiction I've published from TSR. I don't know whether the Lucasfilm short stories ever ended up anywhere, but on the web or maybe in a computer game. I don't know. I don't recall. I'm bad about keeping track of what I've done where and for whom. Um, that and the unicorn thing. I don't remember the unicorn thing. Okay. There's an unfinished. Is that the unfinished thing? The one, the Circle of Valar, I think it was called. Those were werewolves. Maybe there's a unicorn in there too. I don't know. Um, I should actually get back to those. Those were neat little characters. But I've been at this for 2 hours now. I really appreciate Cody and Dave. You guys are troopers, hanging on for this long, and you've been very helpful for me to sort of bounce a little bit off and think as I talk. I do appreciate it. But now I kind of need to call it a night because actually, oh my, I do need to call it a night because I have an early. Thursday nights are a very dumb idea for me to do this because it's Friday is the one day of the week where I actually have something early in the morning I need to do. It's a standing thing, and yet here I am staying up late talking to the camera and you guys. Thank you. And I'll have to try to figure out what this unicorn thing is that I did because I do not recall. Insomnia and drugs. Well, that is something that keeps people up, certainly, or puts you to bed. But at any rate, I appreciate it. And I guess, Dave, this might even be a little bit of a dry run of what we were talking about the game design videos. Although, as I said, I think I should team up with my friend Stan to do something that is better. And I should probably do some blather about where I get my ideas from, which are different from where other people get their ideas from, I'm sure. Because sometimes the title comes before anything else, and then product follows the title, for me at least. But anyhow, oh, there's Simba deciding to come in and say, "Get your big butt to bed." You want to come up here? No, he doesn't. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you again. And if anyone finds this stream and has been is still watching this deep in, please, by all means, leave a comment below. If you have an opinion on the D20 system or the OGL or what to call feats and talent trees, as I basically do something that, do a, let's, I'll just, there's no beating around the bush. It's a D20 modern game that's not D20 modern. Period. End of story. Because I can't play with D20 modern anymore because Wizards has told me that I can't. And I guess at this point I can even, well, I'm still not going to say what I think is the poison pill that they have yet to enact, but they could any moment they want, and they've always been able to. So I'm sure that's coming at some point. But yes, Dave, good night. Thank you for hanging out. Cody, thank you for hanging out. And good night to you as well. And I'm going to push the button now. Push button number 1. Push button number 2, and we are clear.